Hi everyone and welcome to Back in Time Fiction, the channel dedicated to historical fiction and historical fantasy. Today I have the honor of receiving my first guest, Brook Allen, the award-winning author of the fantastic Antonius Trilogy, based on the one and only Marcus Antony. In this interview, we go back to the origins of her passion for history, what makes Marcus Antony such an interesting character. Brook also gives us her biggest tip for any aspiring author, some information on her next project, and finally we will hear the truth about why is Brook Allen pink. The sound isn't perfect for the first couple of minutes, but you know, it gets better. We have more interviews and videos coming up very soon, so please subscribe to this channel and don't forget to share this one already. Alright, let's get to it. Hello Brook, I'll just ask you 1 minute. I want to put my computer to charge already. So
that's fine, and I'm trying to figure out the lighting here always makes me look pink. I'm wearing like a gray shirt, gray-brown shirt. I don't understand why it's doing this.
I will mention it from the beginning. This is not your natural hair color. Usually Brook Allen is not pink, you are not purple. This is a first, this is a special for Back in Time Fictions.
Yeah, I'm just pink.
Thank you very much for joining me, Brook. I'm so happy you're my first guest. Today I want to talk with you about historical fiction in general. We will obviously discuss the Antonius Trilogy. And of course we will talk about writing in general. Let's start this little interview of Brook Allen of the Antonius Trilogy. Do you like to call it something else, by the way? Is it because I keep calling it Antonius Trilogy?
No, that's what I've decided to call it. I mean, you know, before I had an actual trilogy and it was just one or two books, you know, I had to call them directly by their names.
Yeah.
But now that I've got all three books, I call it the Antonius Trilogy on my ads and everything, and it just makes sense. Just makes sense.
I really like the title Son of Rome. It speaks a lot. The thing is, I think there is another book called Son of Rome about Octavian, and I'm like, oh, August and those two people wouldn't like it. They wouldn't like to have two books with the same title for each of them, you know.
Now I know that there is a game out there. And I don't, it's spelled R-Y-S-E, and I don't know how you pronounce it, Rice. And apparently they do have a game out there called Son of Rome, but I had not known that there was another book.
Yeah, so first question to you, mon ami. And oh yeah, that's true. I forgot to mention you, on top of everything, Brook Allen actually speaks French. So we will switch this interview to French. We will switch this interview to French now. No, just kidding. Let's start with just a bit of conversation on historical fiction. So as a reader, what do you like in this genre? What do you like specifically in historical fiction? Maybe it's a favorite period of time, maybe books, a specific book.
I like books that grab me from the beginning. Especially if it's about historical fiction or ancient Rome or, you know, a particular period, I want a book that grabs me from the beginning and makes me think and puts me in a position of, oh, wow, what an interesting way of thinking about this person or that person. I'm reading a phenomenal book right now, Elizabeth I by Margaret George, who is just the mistress of historical fiction. And what I love about this book, and I'm going to include this in my review, is the fact that instead of starting when, you know, she was mere princess and, you know, Henry VIII's daughter and she's about to become a queen, her father dies and all that, instead she starts when the queen is my age, you know, nearing 60 years old. And oh my goodness, here's this older woman who has this huge problem called the Spanish Armada. And it's just amazing how she began this novel and how we've learned, even though she's an older woman, we've learned about her early years through backstory, done very appropriately. And the story continues in her older years. And it's so different and it's so intriguing that it's really fleshed out this character for me. And she's not just a queen, she's a person. She's somebody with real trials in her life who has so much difficulty and yet she has to overcome it. And she does it with her brain, not with her looks. Yeah, if you don't care about the period of time, you know, it shouldn't matter, you know, because a story is a story. And, you know, if somebody is up against all odds, if somebody has some faults or some characteristics that are intriguing to a reader, you know, just write them in, grab it as an author, you know. You have to embrace those things with people. That's why Mark Antony was so much fun. He had so many faults. It was just easy. It was just easy to make people feel for him one way or another. For historical fiction, especially in the United States, where history isn't as prominent a subject area in school as it used to be, sadly, you know, it's got to capture your imagination. It has to capture your fancy.
So, and actually, you know what, that's great, because I didn't want to miss this one. You're my first interviewee, my first guest. I have a bit of a special question I want to ask you, and I will ask every guest I have after that. So here, they are warned, you were not, sorry about this. What has been your first historigasm? You know, your first moment when you realize, you know what, history, that's my stuff. I live for historical fiction, or I want to write historical fiction. I call it historigasm. That's going to be a thing.
That's a real scary word you created there. Yeah. I know exactly when it is for me. Okay. Yeah. I was a sophomore in high school, and I was sitting in my sophomore English class, which is it was a pretty basic course. We dealt with, you know, grammatical type stuff in the English language that was more advanced. We dealt with Shakespearean plays. And I had read some Shakespeare when I was a freshman in what we call ninth grade here in the States. But I had not read Julius Caesar, and that's the one that we were doing. And I'll never forget, you know, she actually had us act out some of the characters. And guess who I got? Antony, yeah. So anyway, I read his role, and it was just really funny. The history of that period, I thought so many people who are big names in history were alive at the exact same time. Antony, Cleopatra, Julius Caesar, Cicero, Marcus Brutus, Augustus. They were all alive at once, which that doesn't happen too often. Usually there's just one big name, you know, Napoleon and Josephine, boom. But oh my goodness, you know, I was floored, and I fell in love with that period of history. I have fallen in love with every period of history that I've really pursued and just focused on. Yeah. The Arthurian legend is another favorite of mine. And I'm right now on my next project, I'm working on American history, and it's here in my area, so I don't have to do any huge trips, you know, which is a good thing right here in the middle of a pandemic, right? Yeah. But just open the door and do some research. That's great. Yeah, there you go. I don't have to go far. But the good thing is that when I was bitten by the history bug, I remember exactly when it was, and it was in my sophomore history class. So that's great. Easy answer for you, Baptiste. Is it the origins of why you chose to write about Antonius specifically? No, I will say this, no. I wanted to write on the 1st century BC, and I knew that, but I didn't know who or what I wanted to write on. And it wasn't until like 40 years later when I really sat down and knew I can do this now. I have the life lessons. I have more of an understanding of Roman culture. When I went back to work on my master's, I focused on ancient Roman studies. In a liberal sense, I didn't go back and take Latin or anything like that. Although I did study Latin on my own a bit so that I could try to embrace more of what was going on linguistically. It really paid off. You know, those years that I spent, those 2 years that I immersed myself in Roman history and the culture of the period just really paid off. And I think it came across in my world building in this book series. So that's actually one of my next questions, because I will say this: you did something with the first volume of the Antonius Trilogy, so Son of Rome. You did something quite amazing. Is you made me interested into a young character, and I must say, usually that's a bit of a deal breaker for me.
Not all the time. Very often when there is a kid, I know he's going to grow up, yes, but I usually don't care so much about the youth, the childhood, teenagerhood. Now in Son of Rome, I love the part when he's a child, and even more when he's a teenager. And the reason why I really like this part is because of the way you describe Rome. And this is such a fresh, modern way to describe Rome. Even though the story is like 2,000 years ago, Rome has like a modern feeling, a dark modern feeling. It could be Paris or New York or many other cities, back streets. You know, I had this feeling of both modernity and ancientity. I don't know if you can say it in English, ancienty. And
ancientness, yeah.
Ancientness, no idea. So I had this feeling of both modernity and ancientness in the way you describe Rome. The gambling, the back alley, the dark rooms. How did you do this world building? Was it something you wanted to do, like give this feeling, or how did you go with your world building?
I definitely, the end of Republican Rome was just such a snake pit. It was just a horrible place in which to grow up, I think, especially if you were poor. But, you know, even I wanted to come across that even though, you know, Antony was born into a noble household, you know, his folks, his family did not have a huge amount of money because of what had happened because of Marius and Sulla and these other dictators that had preceded them. I thought it was extremely important in building his character from the get-go to have that story, because nobody had ever done it before. You know, the only other Mark Antony book that I've read was from a gentleman in England. His name escapes me right now, so please don't ask. But he did a beautiful job, but he starts when Antony's already a statesman. He's already achieved some, you know, some of adulthood's glories. Whereas my Antony starts literally when he's at his worst. His dad has just died in infamy. You know, he doesn't know what's going to happen. How do I crawl out of this pit? Because now my family's reputation is shattered. You know, it was really important for me, I felt, to start there because of what happens to him later in life, because of the way his outlook is on life. You know, Mark Antony was not your typical Roman. He was able to laugh at himself. He was able to go out after having a crappy day and binge drink and feel better afterwards. You know, he was one of these people that he just didn't go by the status quo. He wanted to be his own man. He wanted to do things his way and on his agenda, and the other Romans around him had a hard time with that. They couldn't get their heads around it. And, you know, I think that though that Antony is one of these people that had Cicero changed his mind toward him, and he come around, Antony would have embraced him. He would have. I don't think he would have maintained his spiteful spirit, you know, whereas Octavian would have. You know, once you crossed the line with Octavian, that was it. And, you know, that's not going to change. Yeah, so I just felt like when I started that story, I had to do it in childhood because I wanted my reader, if I was going to make this a trilogy and I was going to make this character grow and develop throughout the entire trilogy, they had to see him at the get-go. They had to see, why does he binge drink? Why does he do this? Why did he go for Cleopatra instead of just staying married to Octavia and having a part in Roman history and maintaining his position? You know,
that's a great view, and this is what is I don't want to spoil too much. I want people to go read your book. But that is true. The first book gave me such a will to, you know, shake him off. You know, like you say, he's at his worst, and I just want to tell him, dude, you're going to be an awesome general. You know, it's time to wake up a bit. You know, because it went on. You know, we don't really know about his youth, but even his 20s, it's not that clear. And your book makes it look so interesting. The hardship he had, the personal hardship he had to go through before he became the legend he is. One thing that is very interesting about a character like this character, not just in your books but in most representation of him we have, he's really a man's man. He's the guy, the kind of guy, the legionaries, the soldiers loved him because he was on their side. He was not your typical patrician. As much as Augustus was famous through history, I think Antonius is more the kind of guy we like nowadays. Among the two, he's the winner. For me, in my mind, between the two nowadays, in terms of popularity, he would be the winner.
Yeah. He was the type of people loved, but they didn't fear as much. And I think Octavian and both Julius Caesar were leaders where they weren't always loved, but they were feared.
I think if Instagram existed back then, Antonius would have become emperor.
The world may have been a different place, right?
Exactly.
It would have been interesting. I have a lot of people ask me, what do you think would have happened if they had won? He and Cleopatra. And I do think there would be some differences. I think there would be more of an openness towards religion, towards, who knows? But, I just think that people wouldn't have such closed mindsets about things. I think we would have had a lot more art.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
A lot more art, a lot more ballet, a lot more symphony orchestras. You can't ever tell, but definitely Antony and Cleopatra, whatever plan they did have, it was completely buried, and we'll never know exactly what they had in mind, which is sad. The
biggest issue I feel when it comes to those two characters is their story was written by the people who destroyed them, by their victors. Their victors wrote the story. And which means we have to second guess everything. Like, was he as much of a drunk? Was she really like a worshipper of such strange things? There are so many things we will never know for real because we have this clear image. A lot of the things we know now, we think we know now, they just come from Shakespeare's plays. Like Caesar didn't die saying like "Et tu, Brute" and stuff like this. That he was hurt. He was probably like calling his mom, But we have this beautiful image, Shakespearean image. So yeah, that's a question I wanted to ask you. What did you choose to keep from history as it's being told, and what did you choose to leave away?
And again, I have to be careful what I reveal here because I do want people to read the books. I think that there is this huge balancing act for an author in historical fiction. What do I leave in and what do I change? Oftentimes, especially in a biographical type novel like mine was, it's dictated to me what I need to leave in and what I need to not change. I did take some liberties in my last book. I don't know if you've read it yet, but
I'm halfway through. Don't spoil it.
Okay, I won't. Okay, but there is a huge plot twist at the very end, and I decided to do that because I needed something that would be Brook Allen, and not Shakespeare. Brook Allen, and not the regular story of Antony and Cleopatra and their demise and what happens. But the cool thing is I was able to work it out so that it's completely plausible. Okay. It could have happened. It's those types of things. If you're able to find one little element of plot that actually occurred in the historical telling, in history's annals, it's really important to be able to identify those, because those are things that you can piddle around with and fine tune and change to your satisfaction. But when you've got characters that people do know so much about, they've got such huge names, even in our households today. Household names. I had another suicide downtown today. The guy did a Mark Antony. We know how he died. If you go messing with that kind of history, people are going to really be upset. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've gotten 1 and 2 ratings from people who just don't like him. He's still this polarizing, extremely controversial character in history that you're either going to like or not like.
No matter who writes about this character, some people are going to be on his side, some are going to be against and that's why it makes him so interesting, and that's why I was so happy to read, and still I'm so happy to read a trilogy about him, where he's the central character, because very often he's the secondary one, he's the background character. Actually, you know what? Not so many people like this from a historical point of view, but the TV show Rome, I really like the way he was portrayed. I'm not saying that was perfect. That was far from what he's in your book. But I think the actor was James Purefoy or something. I forgot.
Yes, James Purefoy.
James Purefoy, and I think he portrayed Mark Antony in a very good way. Talking about characters, this is a question only writers will really understand. But which character surprised you the most when you wrote your trilogy?
Surprised me the most, I think his mom.
His mom, okay.
I had no idea when I first started writing, the very first 3 words, father was dead, from Son of Rome. I had no clue that I would fall in love with her character so much. And I cried when I had to bring her character to an end. I'm not going to tell anything else about it, but she was amazing, I think. Here's a woman that when her son was declared a public enemy of the state, she and his wife, Fulvia, marched to the Forum with their slaves and their family, and even carrying his infant son, Antonius. And they marched down there and climbed up on the rostra and made a presence for him so that Cicero could not declare him a public enemy in fear of riot. And it worked. Eventually, they did declare him a public enemy, but, I think it's remarkable, that took a lot of chutzpah, from a woman to do that back in ancient times. Then when the prescriptions occurred, Antony does declare his uncle, his mother's brother, as an enemy of the state, and as open season on this guy, go for it, kill him. And she hid him in their house. She hid him in their house. We don't know for how long, but I would imagine it was probably at least a couple of weeks, if not longer, while all of this was going on, all this horrible bloodshed. And by golly, she even went to the door when soldiers came to the house and said, "You want him? You're going to have to strike the womb who bore your general." Wow. That took an immense amount of courage. This lady, so the woman was an adventurer herself. We know where her son got his sense of adventure, right?
Well, not from the dad, apparently. Not from the dad.
Not from his dad, sadly, but definitely from mom. She was from the Julian side of the family. She was Julius Caesar's cousin. Whether she was a first cousin or not, it becomes a little bit unclear, a little foggy in the historical family tree, but definitely they were cousins.
I vividly remember in the first book, her reaction to Antony's choice of first wife. And that was she was a very good character, or still is, as far as I'm, in my mind, she is an amazing character. So no, I see. People who read books never wrote a story. They don't realize, they think, every character is exactly as you plan. But so far from the truth. Sometimes you intend a character this way, but he shapes to be that way. It's like, no, I don't want to be like that. I want to be like this. I want to be this.
I had no idea that she would be such an integral part of my stories. But, her character threads clear through all 3 books.
Yeah.
And it's been such a pleasure tracking her character. I mean, a book could be written about her, easily, a historical fiction book. Maybe I should do that, huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah, there was one specific moment. I think I've mentioned it to you once I read the second book. So far, I loved the first, but the second one was my favorite. Simply because I'm such a dude, and all the period of time of the glory of Marcus Antony, when he was so prominent. I really this is my favorite part of the story. I really love the first. The second for me is even better. But the part that I love the most is Caesar's death, the way Caesar dies, and the way you chose, the angle you chose to describe it, is just brilliant for me. That was so fresh, so refreshing, you know, so different from whatever I've read before. I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite moment in your series?
There were so many fun places, you know, definitely the Ides of March was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. To pinpoint one particular thing that was my favorite thing to write on is as difficult as it was, probably the Battle of Actium.
Oh, really?
And you're not there yet.
No. That's why I'm so
Battle of
surprised.
Actium.
I would have.
Battle of Actium, it's in the third book.
Yeah, I would have assumed you actually enjoyed writing about Philippi and the way Octavian behaved at Philippi, because that's like the worst.
That was fun. Well, definitely there were really fun places, but I guess, you know, as far as immersing myself, you know, imagining what it smelled like, what it sounded like. Another one that was really fun, I found myself loving writing the battle scenes. Who knew, right? But I'm a damn good field commander. And I am.
That's true. There is such a different tone from the moment Marcus Antony becomes a soldier in your story, and I can feel like how comfy you were writing this moment. You know, like that's it. He's a man. He has a horse, like a spear.
We got it now.
So
he's made.
Yeah. No, exactly.
I'll tell you, Adrian Goldsworthy, the brilliant classicist, English classicist, really helped. He has several books out about Roman warfare, and reading those really helped me so much. I also have a cousin who is a former colonel in the U.S. Air Force, and you know, in his study of warfare in the past, since he was up at higher command, he was able to offer me a lot of good advice, a lot of, you know, just, I guess, you know, the way you would plan out a battle or describe a battle. He was able to kind of help me edit some things. And then once he did that once or twice for me, especially in the first book, I was able to really go about most of this myself. And I've actually had somebody to me, this was a huge compliment. Wow, you could give Ben Kane a run for his money with your battle scenes, you know? Wow, that's great, you know?
It is. If I ever get this review, I will be a successful writer. That's it. You know, that's one of my goals.
Yeah. So anyway, I haven't had the privilege of meeting Ben yet, but hopefully maybe someday I would love to sit down and talk battle scenes with him. You know, he does such a great job. But
if you ever meet Ben Kane, tell him I want to interview. He's on my list to interview whenever I can. So
okay.
Yeah, just to throw it out there. You know, Ben Kane, if you watch this, I need to interview.
It's bound to happen one of these days. One of my goals is to get to the UK in the next few years to attend one of their Historical Novel Society conferences.
Yeah.
I'd really love to do that. So.
Absolutely. No,
once the pandemic ends, you know, if it ever does. So
yeah,
that's a goal.
Yeah, me too. I really want every year. I'm tempted to go to Yorkshire. They have like a lot of Vikings gathering and stuff like that. I really want to attend one of them. See for myself, because, you know, I keep writing about guys going in the shield wall and smashing each other's face. I want to see what it feels like for real just once, you know. So just one question as a writer, what kind of advice would you give to aspiring author, whether it is this historical fiction or the rest, whether it is about publishing or writing in itself, if you had one advice?
Aside from not quitting your day job, I don't give up. You know, there are some mean people out there, sadly, Baptiste, and they are the types of people that have broken hearts of authors because of ratings or comments made in reviews. And it's really important to keep the mindset that not every book is for every single person. And it doesn't matter how much somebody will like your work, there's going to be equally somebody else out there who doesn't. And you mustn't give up, because if you allow those things to get to your heart and and just break you down and make yourself feel that you are not a good writer, you will never be a good writer. You've got to stand up, dust yourself off, go back to war, and just write. That's what you have to do to make it in this industry. I have no idea where I'm headed in this industry. I may always continue to be an independent author, which is fine. You know what? I'm having a blast doing it. Love what you do and write what you want to write, because if you are one of these fortunate people and you are able to get representation from a big house, and you've got a huge, big publisher, and I have friends who do, sometimes that limits what you can write on. So, there's a trade-off. Don't give up. That would be my biggest bundle of advice. Don't give up.
Well, thank you for yourself and for any other aspiring author and all the writers out there trying to make it into the genre and all the others. But obviously, historical fiction is the most important. So you know what? Thank you on behalf of every historical fiction writer. When is your next story coming? When is the next Brook Allen story coming?
It's in research as we speak. And when I say research, I did spend 15 years on the Antonius Trilogy. I don't have enough time in my life left to spend that much time studying on a period again. So someday I will return to ancient Rome, but I am writing on American history right now, right down the road from where I live. Virginia is my state, and my home state is very famous for putting out American history. And one of our very beloved historical figures is William Clark, the explorer, who, along with Meriwether Lewis, opened up the western part of the United States to settlers. This story is about Fincastle, a small, tiny town that was in the middle of the westward expansion, and 200 years ago was considered the United States frontier. And here it's right in my county where I live in the Blue Ridge Mountains. So that's what I'm working on, and not exactly sure where the characters are going to take me yet, Baptiste, but it's going to be in the early 19th century is where it's going to be set. And come the new year, you're going to see a lot more things on my blog about American history instead of ancient Rome. I hope that doesn't disappoint some of my readers too much, but
have to try different things. It's not good just to stick with one.
No,
but I know you will get back to ancient Rome at some point. I have no doubt. I think you actually mentioned it, so I'm not spoiling anything here. But in any case, that's great. I'm looking forward to reading this next story, this American story. Let's say, let's say next year at this time, we'll do another video to introduce your next coming up story. What do you think? Is it possible?
I would love to do that. Yeah, I think so. I don't want to put off starting the actual writing too long. In fact, I actually have started the plotting process. Spotty, it's not long, it's just a paragraph, but I've started. So it's going to come together.
Yeah, that's together. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you very much for joining me today. That was really a pleasure. I'm so happy you're my first guest.
I'm so glad that you asked me. This has been so much fun.
Like, considering what you said before, this is very true. For my videos, for example, I realize it takes 10 people to give a nice comment for me to get over someone putting a one bad comment. It's
true.
10% ratio, at least.
It's true. Yeah.
So in any case, thank you very much.
I want to thank you. I hope I did it justice here.
Thank you very much again for your time. And great weekend.
Happy to do it.
Merry Christmas and all of this.
Oh, joyeux Noël.
Yeah, joyeux Noël à toi aussi. À la prochaine.
À bientôt.
À bientôt.
I will leave the link to Brooke's blog and to her novels in the description. This would be a very nice gift for anyone you know who is into ancient Rome, or, just to yourself. And please don't forget to leave a good review once you are done reading the book. You just can't imagine how much it helps writers when you do that. Thank you very much for watching this video until the end. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel and to share this video. I will come back very soon with more content on the best genre of literature. Until then, just grab a book and enjoy. See you soon. Bye.